Do you want to make money by copying the same trades a professional is taking? Well, now you can. Since 1997, Chris Vermeulen has focused on building technology to help himself become more profitable. He now shares his swing trading and passive investing signal with others just like you. Let these technically proven strategies protect your assets while profiting from the biggest trends, no matter if the market is rising or falling. Visit www.thetechnicaltraders.com to learn more. Welcome to the Technical Traders Podcast, the show that brings you technically proven strategies and trade ideas from experts around the world. We're going to help you make more money with less risk so you can take your trading to the next level. Now, here's your host, Jim Goddard.
My guest is Greg Dickerson. He's the CEO of Dickerson International. You can find him online at dickersoninternational.com. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Greg, where are you, and can you tell us a bit about Dickerson International?
Yeah, so I'm located in Charlottesville, Virginia, just outside of Washington, D.C., home of the University of Virginia and the Darden School of Business, one of the top business schools in the country. But Dickerson International is my school of entrepreneurship. I've been an entrepreneur since 1997, and my long story short is I bought, developed, and sold over $250 million in real estate, started 12 different companies from the ground up, and built and renovated hundreds of custom homes, commercial buildings, developed mixed-use subdivisions, things like that. So, that's me in a nutshell. So what I've done is I've packaged everything that I know and everything I've learned over the past, 25 years doing all of those things into some online courses. And then I also offer one-on-one coaching, and I work with people all over the world doing all kinds of things, teaching them how to be a real estate developer, how to invest in real estate, how to do big commercial and multifamily real estate deals, how to raise capital. I teach people how to buy companies, how to, start companies from the ground up, and how to grow and scale their existing businesses. So that's what I do and what Dickerson International is all about.
Wow. So you take a good idea and you make it bigger and better.
Exactly. I love to build things. I'm a builder. I'm a natural born entrepreneur. Started as a, young kid knocking on doors. I'm talking, 7, 8 years old, cutting grass, raking leaves, washing cars, babysitting your kids, whatever, you needed done. I would knock on your door and say, hey, my name's Greg. I live down the street. I need to make some money. And my dad taught me at a young age, if you want something, you need to go figure out how to make the money to buy it, because I'm not going to give it to you. So, I wasn't raised, we were a middle-class family. My dad was career military. Nobody in my family were entrepreneurs. And, that's just how I am wired. And I love to create. I love to build things. I love to solve problems, make something out of nothing. And, that's what entrepreneurs do. We make things happen, get things done. We solve problems. And, it's very creative. It's a lot of fun. Every day is different. Every situation is different. And like I said, I work with people all over the world doing all kinds of different things. So it's very intellectually stimulating for me.
So how did you get started with investing?
So back in 2008-9, so, my career was mainly creating small businesses to generate cash flow to invest in other assets. And for me, I was a remodeling handyman contractor and ended up turning that into a $30 million building development business in about 7 years. And I built 12 other companies along the way at the same time. And as I did all that, 2008-9 happened, and I had to pivot. And I didn't know anything about stocks, really. I kind of followed markets a little bit, but I had never invested in stocks, never invested in anything like that. When 2008-9 happened, I had a good friend who had a restaurant down in the area that I was located, and he came from Wall Street and left that career and opened a little, breakfast joint. I was living on the Outer Banks of North Carolina at the time, which is where flight originated, where the Wright brothers took off. And he said, Greg, this is an opportunity to create generational wealth like we've never seen. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He said, the market, is crashing. It's about to hit a bottom, and we can get in now, and, everything you ever needed to pay for will be taken care of with just a small investment. So we got together in his little breakfast shop and started, watching the markets and trading stocks. And I made my first investment at the bottom of March 2009 when the Dow was 6,000 and the S&P was 600. And I was buying Ford. I think my first purchases were Ford stock at $1.90, Citibank at like $1.19, Bank of America at $1 something. So that was my first foray into, traditional markets.
Is there anybody you really admire or influenced you to become involved in real estate, financial markets, or coaching?
Yeah, so it all started with Rich Dad, Poor Dad. That was the first book that I read that really opened my mind to, creating businesses that generate cash flow to invest in other assets. And when I read that book, I wanted to be Rich Dad. I didn't want to be Robert Kiyosaki. I wanted to be the rich dad that he was talking about because he owned all the real estate, he owned all the businesses, and he was making all the investments. So, I studied that, and that's where I just said, okay, that's what I'm going to do. And then, of course, back in the day, Donald Trump was hot, in terms of his real estate, so I read his book for real estate. I read Sam Zelle. There were a few other real estate investors that I read and followed. And then, of course, Warren Buffett for stocks. He was all the rage back then, for stock markets. Still is, I guess. But really back then, he was really carving a path in stocks. And then, of course, other people along the way. But the big core, pivot point for me was reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad. That's where that really opened my mind to understanding, how to put a lot of assets together to generate cash flow to pay for the things that you needed to sustain your life and then investing the rest.
What's your investing philosophy? What set of principles, beliefs, or experiences drive your decisions?
I'm opportunistic, so I look for value wherever I can find it, and I like to make fewer, bigger moves. So, I like to get in at the bottom. So, in stocks, it was 2008-9, and then I've made big moves on every major pullback in the markets, including March 2020. That was my last big deployment of capital into the markets, and those are the types of things that I look for because I've been around long enough in cycles in real estate and stocks where, good times never last, bad times never last. So I look for the big pullbacks, and that's where I make nice moves, and then I exit at the top. So my main philosophy that I always tell everybody is it's more important to know the top than it is the bottom. Mm-hmm. And I exit at the top, take my chips off the table. I'm not afraid to go to cash and sit in cash and wait. So from equities, that's kind of how I make those moves. And I compound cash. That's always my goal, grow and scale, a pile of cash. Real estate's been the same way. I want to buy value, add value, create value, and then exit, when the time is right. So that's kind of how I approach things and look at things. And from a real estate standpoint, it can be ground up. It could be adaptive reuse. It could be major value add. I'm not a margin player. I'm not or yield. I'm not a yield guy. I'm a margin. So I'm looking for big moves, big margins, not little yields.
How important is it for a person to have some kind of philosophy they stick to when they're investing?
It's extremely important. So that's the key to success in any business, any investment. You need to have a thesis, and you need to have discipline to stick to your thesis, and you need to be self-aware enough to where if your thesis is wrong or not working, you need to pivot and make a new one. But if you're day trading or swing trading, obviously you need a system, and you need, your technicals that you operate by, and you want to, journal those things and stay steady with that approach. And if you're more opportunistic like me, then you just stick to your entry and exit valuations and your margins so that you know that you're covered. So it's extremely important. Discipline is huge.
We'll have more with Greg Dickerson right after this.
Did you miss the huge gains in growth and momentum stocks with your trading? Do you want to own the hottest stocks and sectors during the next stock market rally? The BAN, Best Asset Now Trading Alert newsletter will let you know which stocks to own, including entry, targets, and protective stop prices. Visit www.bantrader.com to learn more.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Greg Dickerson. Greg, are there any investment myths that people should know about? Some of them work, sell in May, go away, things like that.
I really don't know. I mean, you hear that, you see that, and then, of course, you hear Santa Claus rallies, and we didn't have that this year. And, I don't know that those things hold true. They might. I haven't really tracked them and back-checked them, but if you are going to adhere to something like that and buy into it, you definitely want to back-check it and make sure that it's accurate. And from what we've seen in the markets, really nothing is. Markets are cyclical. These days, headline risk, headlines can move markets in a major way. It's a very different market now than it used to be. But like I say, the most important thing to know is the top. And, I called the top 2018, 2019. I called the top recently, back in November, December, and I invest in crypto as well as equities, and real estate. So again, the key is to know that top.
What's your favorite type of analysis or indicator you find helps you time your investments?
In the markets, it's major moves. So I look for, when I'm deploying, I'm looking for 10% or better pullbacks to make big moves on in terms of stocks and equities. Crypto is a little different because crypto can correct, 30, 40%. I just look for those major pullbacks that are moving to previous, support and resistance levels. I look at the moving averages. Of course, the 200-day is a big one. Major moving averages and some, Fibonacci retracement levels are kind of important when you're looking at stocks and swing trading. And then I also look at macro. A lot of people say, show me the charts and I'll tell you the news. Well, news moves markets, especially right now with the geopolitical climate, with interest rate, Fed policy. We've been in a bull market since 2009 and, an easy Fed, monetary policy environment. So very different climate that we're getting ready to move into now. So you really have to pay attention to the macro as well. So I look at macro, then I take that and I apply technicals to it and make my decisions based on that. But if I'm looking to deploy, I want to deploy on at least a 10% or better pullback in the equities.
You talked about a big influence in your life, the book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Any other recommended reading you could give our listeners?
Yeah, so it depends on what you're looking to do. Generally what I've done in my career is I've found the best in the businesses doing what I want to do, and I go study them. So I love to read biographies. So I've read, recently Tillman Fertitta, Landry's founder, great, biography, Steve Schwartzman, Michael Eisner, of course, Warren Buffett, Sam Zell, Donald Trump, love him or hate him. Early in his career, I read, how he did what he did. So Keith Hall, big developer in Texas. I love to read biographies of books and learn from people. The Intelligent Investor by Ben Graham, although, today's world is very different than what those guys grew up in terms of value investing and things. Of course, as we know, valuations have been kind of out the window. But, as far as business and mindset books, all of the greats. So my core 3 books that really changed my life were Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, and The Power of Positive Thinking by Norman Vincent Peale. So those 2 books especially, and then How to Win Friends and Influence People, Dale Carnegie, but, anything by those guys, and then all the classics like, Anthony Robbins, Zig Ziegler, Jim Rohn, Brian Tracy, all of the, sales, success, and mindset gurus, if you want to call them, but I'm very highly self-educated. I'm really into personal professional development. I've never had any music on any of my devices going all the way back to the, Sony Walkman. It was all business books and mindset, personal professional development, and then the CD Walkman, and then, I've got the 80 gig iPod, nothing but business books on it. And then even today, that's all I listen to are, like this, business podcasts, investing podcasts, things like that.
If you're an investor or a potential client for somebody, how can you spot a scam? You've been around long enough. I'm sure you can sniff one out in a second. But for people getting into investing, so many people offer things like guaranteed returns. And if you've been around long enough, there is no such thing. How do you sniff them out?
Well, that's one. If somebody's offering guarantee or, it's, can't fail, if it sounds too good to be true, those types of things. And in today's world, there are some things that are too good to be true that actually work. But, as far as the individual goes, if they don't know their business and know their numbers at an intimate level, then that's a red flag. If somebody's desperate in the deal, you got to send your money today or you're going to miss out, that's a red flag. And then, of course, anybody who's guaranteeing anything or telling you that, number just goes up, that there, doesn't go down and it's never going down and it'll never go below a certain level. Those types of things are red flags. But, today it's pretty tricky. There's a lot of scams out there and very sophisticated scams.
What's the best advice you ever received?
Never stop learning.
Simple as that.
Simple as that. Never stop learning. And there's tons of, all kinds of different, pieces of wisdom I've received along the years. But, one thing I've learned in my career is the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. And it's what you don't know that, really holds you back. But even more important than that, Mark Twain, it's what you think that just ain't so, that can get you. So,
yeah.
knowledge is everything. And then, the application of that knowledge to the right vehicle at the right time in the right way with the right amount of leverage, is really the key. But yeah, at the end of the day, I would not be where I'm at if I had not continued my education and just kept pouring into myself. So when you sum it all up, that's probably the best advice I've ever received, is just never stop learning. Never think that you've arrived. You can always go deeper. You can always learn more. And there's always something out there that you absolutely don't know that could just be a game changer for you.
Yeah, and my two favorite Mark Twain sayings: the hardest thing in the world is to convince a fool that they've been fooled, and golf, a perfectly good walk ruined. Is there something you wish you would have known before you started trading and investing?
Yeah, I mean, a lot more. I didn't know anything before I started, trading and investing. So, I wish I would have had more education early on in that regard. What I knew back then was work hard. The harder you work, the better opportunities you're going to have. So I just didn't know what I didn't know. So what I wish I knew back then was obviously what I know now, was that, how to raise capital, how to do bigger deals early on that I just didn't think I could do. But when it comes to investing in, equities and things like that, I just didn't know. I just didn't know anything about stocks, didn't know anything about the markets and, gold. I had one guy, years ago, it was probably 2004. The gold bugs around me were all older, and, it was 200, 300 an ounce back then. And they were telling me gold's going to hit 1,200 an ounce. And I'm like, you're crazy. And man, if I would have put a little chunk of change in gold back then, it would have worked out pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, the big one, I didn't know anything about Bitcoin or cryptocurrency when that came around. And, I would have loved to have known about that 10 years ago and put, $1,000 in Bitcoin 10 years ago. It'd be worth $1 billion right now.
Sure. Are non-fungible tokens, are they in the same category as Bitcoin was 12 years ago? No, not at all. Bitcoin's a very different thing in and of itself. It's a digital gold. It's digital property. So it's very different than NFTs. NFTs are, a lot of different things, but, Bitcoin is one thing, and it's a limited supply of one thing that'll ever be created. And it's got a certain, amount of interest at an institutional level where NFTs are fads and trends that will come and go. Mm-hmm. Before we go, is there any topic or financial or business practice that you're really passionate about? In terms of business practice, leadership, obviously, that's one of the keys to the success that I've had, is developing myself into a great leader and, teaching and helping other people do that, from a business practice and, from an investment standpoint, just, curiosity in general, just always being curious, always trying to figure out why and how things work, and, understanding that everything these days, it's all trends. Markets are cyclical. Things come and go. Good times never last. Bad times never last. It's all about the trend, understanding the trend, and, investing and taking advantage of that trend and not going against it. Greg, thank you so much for being here on Technical Traders.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
My guest has been Greg Dickerson, CEO of Dickerson International. You can find him online at dickersoninternational.com. I'm Jim Goddard.
Thanks for joining us this week on the Technical Traders Podcast. If you found value in our show, subscribe and give us a rating or share it with a friend. That would be greatly appreciated as well. TheTechnicalTraders.com, your source for technically proven strategies to make more money with less risk so you can take your trading to the next level. Comments made on the Technical Traders Podcast are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed as investment advice or recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument. This information is for general information and educational purposes only. Guests on the show are not compensated for their participation. To view our full disclaimer, please visit our website at www.thetechnicaltraders.com.